Oh yeah, Shelter FootyCast live from BackChat Studios. We got one more in before Skeeter's off to Lord of the Ashes. Skeeter, how are you, mate?
Lord of the Ashes.
Lords and the Ashes.
Lords and the Ashes. Very well, though.
Are you packed?
I have got my suitcase sort of packed, yes.
What are you saying like that for?
Well, it's just... You know,
You've packed your bags?
No, my wife has sort of put in there what she thinks I might need for a week of London tourist
Your
work.
wife has packed your bag for you.
I didn't ask her to, but she doesn't trust my ability to put friggin' boxer shorts and shirts and jeans in a
My
suitcase.
5-year-old Nash, right, goes to school every day, packs his own bag.
I didn't ask for it, Scully, but that's just life. No, I'm looking forward to that. But it's cold here, very cold. It's even colder at Mineral Resources Park as we speak. And I would like to say, I knew you were away interstate. I didn't realise that you had the... I wouldn't say the pleasure, but you had
Front row seats,
the chance to watch this car crash of a football game unfold before you in Sydney. So it's a big talking point. It's obviously we're having a bit of a laugh about it, but these are serious times for your footy club.
We're going to get into that in just a second, Skeeter. A few things to get through as usual today. Thirsty Camel Clanger of the Week. I reckon I know which game that is coming in. YouTube, follow us over there at BackChat Studios. Froth Town, what we froth. So we need Clanger of the Week and we also need Froth Town. Skeeter, so we can do that. What we're frothing, it's not going to be West Coast. I'll just give you the hot tip.
Nothing is frothing at West Coast.
Unfrothed. It's flat beer.
It's shite.
To send it back, change the keg out, all that stuff. A big announcement, though, off the top of the show, Skeeter. This Thursday, 6:30 p.m, down at the Gate Bar and Bistro in Coburn.
Been there.
Beers with BackChat. Now, I know this is the Shelter Footy Cast, but it's very relevant because BackChat has just released a beer with Shelter, if you don't mind.
You're getting ahead of yourself.
The BackChat Ale, brewed for Backman. I've tasted it, Skeeter. It's very good.
Was it miserly, surly?
What's miserly? That's like underperformed.
No, miserly is someone like a bit
Dour.
Like, dour. Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, very doesn't give away much.
I would say no. It's just an everyday, just get the job done type of beer. That's what it is, right? So it's a BackChat Ale. We're releasing that this Thursday. We'll be down there. Skeeter can't make it. We couldn't fly him back from London just for it. 6:30 p.m. at the Gate Bar and Bistro. Free entry. Come and hang out with us. Come and have a taste of the BackChat Ale beers with BackChat down there at the Gate Bar and Bistro in Coburn. Skeeter, let's get into some big moments of the round. I think there's only one to talk about. West Coast historic 171-point loss to the Sydney Swans. I'll start with one positive, and it's not in West Coast camp. QBE, major sponsor of the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, I heard about this.
So they pick one game a year where they're going to donate money
for every goal
for charity, and they donate $3,000 for every goal. I reckon they've rocked up. QBE going, might kick 10, 12, maybe 15 on a good day. How many they kick? They kick over 30.
31.
So whatever charity they're supporting, they've copped their fair whack. There's a positive for you. Not much else to cover other than that, Skeeter. I was there.
So that begs a question. You were there, and we watch a lot of footy on TV. Did you get a better sense of where this team is at by watching it live? And we've seen horrendous performances at home, but this is next level.
Yeah, sort of interesting. It is obviously next level. I've been thinking about it since it happened. You know, how do you discuss it? What's the take on it? Because in the end, for one hand, it's the same old shit, right? We've known they're a poor side. This is the fourth time they've lost over 100 points this year. Fifth, mate. I don't know what it is. Fourth. So they've been historically bad already. This was just as bad as it gets. Now, we were there with a couple of NRL podcasters, the Hello Sport lads. They've been across on BackChat. Really good guys. One of them had never been to a game. One had been to one game before. So effectively taking two NRL fans to their first game of AFL. It was an interesting dynamic because I was sitting there explaining some, not the rules, they know what AFL is and how it goes, but just the concepts of loose men behind the ball, importance of midfield dominance, matchups in the back line in front of us. So we were down Sydney's end for the first quarter. So I was actually probably analysing it more than I usually do. Like usually you go down and have a couple of beers and just watch it and, this is a bloodbath. But I was really watching the ins and outs of what was going on. Look, to break it down, they got completely pantsed in the middle of the ground. And I speak about it all the time. Not much changes in AFL footy. If you can't win the ball in the middle, get it going your way. You can't win the ball. You can't transition the foot. Like, it's all the same stuff. I guess what made it the worst was once they couldn't get dominance in the middle, they then could not defend. Like, not even break a 50-50 anywhere across the ground. It was the contest around the ground. Like, if there was a ball going into the air, Sydney would mark it. If the ball was on the ground, Sydney would win it. If there was a handball receive, there was Sydney players running and no West Coast players. There was just no competition for anything across the ground. So usually you see it, midfield dominance, at least you got the back line to hold it together. Well, West Coast, I don't know why. And they're the things I won't be able to break down is why all this happened. But it was just a non-show from pretty much the get-go. Like, I was talking to the boys and saying, well, this is a bloodbath. Like, they kicked 8 goals in the first quarter.
You knew in first 15 minutes, 30 seconds, they kicked their first goal. That
they walked out of the middle twice in the first 2 minutes, and I said at the time, this isn't looking good. Tom Hickey was taking clearances at that stage. So, started badly, got worse, went to horrific.
Did something with Ben Cousins on 7 last night, and it was just talking about, and he was, trying to put a football/soccer terminology into it, as in parking the bus. Obviously, the 666 rule doesn't allow you to do that, but certainly trying to clog up a bit of the SCG, which is a smaller ground, certainly optically, as to whether the Eagles did enough to try and at least stop that bleeding. Hard to see on TV whether they pushed enough numbers back or tried to do that.
I don't know. Tom Barras was off the ground for a lot of that first half with concussion testing, so they really had no one behind the footy. They had, in terms of players, and they were trying to get, they tried to start Luke Shuey behind the ball, but he was quickly pulled into the midfield. Elliot Yeo, same deal. So, they're two of your best players, and they're sort of half trying to play them behind the footy. That's all football stuff, right? And you can break the game down as you want. Sydney, in the end, just completely dominate. Isaac Heaney has 9 shots on goal. You got Angus Sheldrick in his third game of footy has 5 shots on goal, has 30. It's just a complete walkover. So, bar the footy breakdown, where's the West Coast? Like, is it same old? I mean, because that's what Chairman Paul Fitzpatrick's basically said in the letter, that we've got complete faith in Adam Simpson and his group and the football club to rebound, and it's the long haul. Is that still where we're at after this performance?
Well, you think if you're putting out a statement like Paul did yesterday, I mean, you can't come out and if they get beaten by St Kilda by, say, 70 points, he's not going to lose his job. That seems counterproductive if you're going to put that message out and then turn pretty quickly. I mean, there has been a small development even this morning, not so much as in affecting the West Coast Eagles, but it has to be discussed. Damien Hardwick, in a podcast, has come out and said that
Dylan Buff.
Yeah, he said that he's open and he misses coaching. So I'd find it really extraordinary if not even in 2024, but in 2025, if Hardwick's not coaching somewhere. Look, I think there's an opportunity in 2024. If there's even a small window, there'll be a club that will jump on him. Now, at this stage, being realistic, the West Coast Eagles are the most obvious possibility on that front. So, not saying it's going to happen, but he's quite throughout of it, whether this was timed coincidentally that he said, look, I miss it, I'd like to coach again. But I don't know if your time at the club, whether you have been there where there's been that much pressure on a coach, whether it's John Worsfold or whether that the clubs had been forced, almost compelled to put out a statement like they did yesterday. And does that mean that, in all honesty, clubs can turn very quickly that means that Adam's going to be coaching at least until the end of this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been there when John Worsfold, had to step down as coach. So what I remember about that year, we were more competitive in this side.
Oh, yeah.
So Lecker, I think he copped a bit of criticism at the time, but he said the 2010 Eagles would beat this team by 10 goals.
But he might have undercooked it.
I would happily say that it's probably more than 10 goals. And, you can have a laugh, but we were competitive that year. We certainly won more than one game, 4 games maybe, 4 or 5, maybe 6 games. Have a look at that, please.
But the difference is, Scully, and you'll know off the top of your head, but at least, I know, Ruben Jimby's coming through and Noah Long a bit and Brody Hoff and Bazzo, but your young players coming through in that period, there looked to be, you could at least see, okay, could you see it back then that these players were going to be 10, 15-year players?
Look, when I said earlier on, I didn't know how to break this down. I'm trying to think of all the things this year, and I've got to go back to the waffle and my time there, and it was a joke when I did it and had a good laugh, but I saw sort of what these guys are developing in. I really think the development at the West Coast Eagles is in a in big trouble. And we saw it on the weekend at AFL level that some of the boys are not up to AFL standard and not even close. Now, gee, I hate having to have a go at the players in a way there, but I don't think you can say they are. When you lose by 170 points. Now, you can put it on the senior players, which Paul Fitzpatrick has. He put it in the letter.
And they've got, by the way, they had 6 premiership players, to my knowledge, out there on Saturday.
So I agree with that. Senior players, it's got to be on them too. So I just don't think there's enough players up to AFL standard. And yes, the injuries, but I really think the development at the footy club is in trouble. Now, is that because of the injuries? Yes. Is it because of the way the alignment's set up? Yes, it is. Is it because of recruiting? Yes, it is. It's all of those things. And there's been a lot of issues raised. And this is a historically bad football club right now. You can't avoid it. But I think back to my time, how did I get better? I was around good players, good senior players that I looked up to, and they led and trained well. But I learnt to play in the waffle. Like my first 3 years, I played 15 games at AFL level, and I probably played 40 waffle games. And I lost a lot of games, but I learnt how to compete in the waffle and get better. And right now, over the last 2-3 years, and that's a huge portion of development for these players, none of these guys have had that opportunity to do that. So that's where I come full circle to is the development of the young players, and you're going to see performances like this until you can put time into them. So that's correct as well from the footy club. You need time. There's no way to just quick fire this development, but that's where they've fallen behind.
Yeah, and you say leadership when you were there, and I think they've still got the quality when you think of Luke Shuey, Elliot Yeo, Shannon Hearn. They have got that leadership, albeit they're coming to the back end. A couple of those players of their careers, it is
the thing with leadership is Skate. All those players you mentioned and more: McGovern, Brass, Nui, Gaff, Darling. All these guys. The thing with leadership is you can lead however you like, but if you can't put it into practice as a person, it always comes back to the individual. You have as many good leaders as you like, but if you don't have someone that can watch and then go, right, this is what I need to do to get like that, then you can lead whatever you like. You lead a bunch of matchsticks. You need players to follow, to lead.
So do you think off the back of what the chairman has said with regards to, obviously there's going to be changes, a lot of changes at the end of the year, personnel-wise, players, off-field. Those changes will happen at the end of the season. Obviously, the players will find out their fate at the end of the season, but do you think they'll wait until the end of the season to make any changes off the field? You can't change the direction of your club.
Well, like you said, if there's another 100-point loss to St Kilda at home, you wouldn't think that you could keep going the way they are.
I don't know. We've seen, a handful already, and the club. I think one of this is for me, and it's been one of the hallmarks of the footy club, the loyalty that the Eagles show to their own, and I think those that have been at the club is admirable. But also, I think it could also be one of their weaknesses over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe that's.
No, you're
that's
probably
too
right.
simplistic, but
look, I think there has to come a point where there's got to be change. Now, is that right now? Look, I've been in the camp for most of the year that moving Simo on isn't the right move. Has that changed now? That's probably what I'm wrestling with, to be honest.
Yeah.
Whether or not...
What's going to be achieved by? That's a question.
I would say overall, not just Simo's job, but anyone. What's going to be achieved by change? Exactly that. What does it do?
What it does is we've seen it so often, even with Clarko leaving and Ratton coming in, it's a bit of a sugar hit initially. Now, whether that's a Jared Schofield stepping in for the last few matches and then they chase Damien Harwick or one of their assistants gets the job, which seems, highly unlikely given the results at the moment. But yeah, I struggle. I think what it does is it appeases, a West Coast supporter group, supposed supporter group, is going to try and protest the first quarter against St Kilda. I mean, what a load of crap. I mean, really, seriously. I understand you're upset. You don't want to go to the footy or whatever, but don't say we're going to protest. I mean, that to me is it's putrid.
I would, to a point, agree, but I would also, to a point, say that I think fans always just want. They want
see
honesty.
something.
Yeah, they want honesty and they want to see
I
it.
get
So I
it.
can understand the frustration from fans because you feel like you don't know what's going on. And then when you don't see change and your side's just lost by 171 points, you want someone to tell you what's going on. Now, Paul Fitzpatrick's statement was fine. It was great. It was pretty vanilla. If you're a fan, 171 point loss, you want something. Do you
want a head? Do you want a head?
No, you may not want someone's head, but you want something. And that letter was nothing, wasn't it? That was nothing. That letter to members was nothing. And if you're a member, you're like, well, what's going on? It was lost by 170. What are we doing about it?
And even look, Adam Simpson in his post-match press conference, I think he's been stoic and to be fair, he's fronted up, whether it's being with you on a weekekly basis at the club.
This Monday.
But don't worry.
I'll simmer.
Don't worry, I've been in your shoes and you're thinking, okay, how do I word this? Anyway, whether it's 6PR, whether it's doing his stuff with Seven, whether it's doing stuff with you, Simo's fronted up. But I thought what I saw in the press conference on Saturday was a bloke that looked, I'm not saying broken, but he looked
That was
for
anger.
the first time.
No, that was anger.
You think anger?
Yeah, well as I know Simo, I reckon he was angry and properly angry and showing it. So
I think he's lost. I think he looked lost in terms of what's is next.
probably fair enough. Highest scoring margin against Sydney's highest scorer in history of their club. Fair chance that you would be lost.
No, it's a disaster, but...
West Coast Eagles 2010, 4 wins. We would have beaten this West Coast side by 20 goals. I reckon that was off the mark. Now, let's move on, Skeeter. We can break down the game a little bit. I didn't tip. I did not tip, but I did. I did tip in. I put my tips through.
You tipped.
I absolutely did tip. I'm going to have a little look as we're going what I did tip. But Skeeter, you got 4 out of 6 this week. Well done.
Hang on, 4 out of 6. Who did I tip? So you put your roughie anyway. The one that my main footy tipping, I got 6 out of 6, just for what it's worth.
6 out of 6.
I changed my tip on the morning to Geelong, and then I changed. I didn't change. I tipped Gold Coast. So anyway,
I got 3.
I know I got more than 4. Jaden's just trying to stitch me. That's okay. I love it.
Okay, very good.
No, but I changed Melbourne on the day because I saw there's a big betting move on Geelong, so I changed.
Just from Will Schofield, Mark Redding, shot of FootyCast. Let's quickly go through a couple of the games. Sydney West Coast, 171-point loss. A couple of look at the stats here. 3 goals, 32 touches. Errol Gooden, best on ground performance. Isaac Heaney kicked 5 goals. Logan McDonald 4 goals. Amadi 4 goals. There's quite a few goals. Kelly hit with $1,500 sanction for umpire contact. I'm sure he'd be absolutely wrapped with that.
Oh yeah, that'll make him feel better.
It was tied for the 4th biggest defeat of all time and biggest defeat since 2011 when Geelong beat Melbourne by 186 points. If you remember that day down Kinnear Park, that was the day when You're
talking about the Melbourne-Geelong game? Yeah. Well, of course, the late Dean Bailey was sacked only days afterwards. So that was a pivotal moment in Melbourne's history.
It was a bloodbath and I was there to see it and... it was a pretty good vibe at the ground, actually.
Oh, of course it was.
Oh, there's no West Coast fans there, and Sydney fans were just going bananas.
And, the Sydney siders, to be fair, there are some genuine footy heads, but a lot of them are just,
They're like the boys I was with, a couple of NRL lads just having a good time. Let's move on from that game. I think we've done it to dust.
We've just absolutely just brushed it, have we?
Well, mate, we just went for 15 minutes off the top. What do you want me to do?
No, I agree.
You want me to break it down? You want me to break it down? They got absolutely fucking ravaged. It was a ravaging from Billa Post.
The midfield. Spifflicated.
Spifflicated. Right. So the midfield, they got busted in the middle. Like, they couldn't win a centre clearance. Can't win a centre clearance. Went forward. They couldn't defend their man. There's a lot of effort stuff being spoken about in the media. It's probably one of the first times that I'm like, it just didn't look there. I don't talk about effort.
No, but David Mundy said looked like they checked out, which is, that's a big call on a group of players.
There's the stat at the moment, off the bye, teams are playing
horrendous.
Terribly. Does that have any impact? I realise it's a 171-point loss, but West Coast coming off the bye, do they come back next week and potentially refresh them a bit?
The numbers, by the way, are uncanny in terms of how they're not favourable to the team coming off the bye, and we saw that with Melbourne on Thursday, etc. There's a litany of examples. Not sure how, not sure why. I asked Hamish Brayshaw Hammer last week. Didn't have the answer, but it's real. It's definitely real.
You can't break that game down. I'm sorry.
No.
Sydney's not even looking at that.
I thought
guarantee
we'd moved on.
Hey?
I thought we'd moved on.
We had, but Sydney would not look. They would not show vision of that game. John Longmire would not show vision.
No.
He'd be straight onto whoever they're playing next week. Seriously. And West Coast. Not quite sure. I actually spoke to someone that was in the rooms afterwards, and it wasn't a player, it wasn't a coach. It was someone that was down there. I said, what was it like in the rooms? And he was like, to be honest, it was, it's about the same as what it's been. Like, we've been done by 100 points a few times. So it wasn't like a morgue in there.
It's amazing. Like you talk about, it's almost become accepted.
Yeah.
Whereas Collingwood, I think, in their history, have been beaten by 100 points or more, I think, a total of 7 times in their history.
And West Coast are at 4 or 5 this year, Jaden. Have a look, please. Fremantle defeat Essendon in my 32. I can't do it anymore. I was there. I've broken it down. See you later. We're on to the next game. Freo beat Essendon. Did you pick it? You did,
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah,
so did I. Freo were never losing this game, I reckon.
Well, they conceded the first 2 goals, but you're right. After that, they assumed a fair degree of control.
Sean Darcy back.
Sean Darcy back. No Sam Draper was important. Look, to be fair, Phillips in the ruck was pretty competitive early, but after the initial sort of 10 or 15 minutes, Fremantle really started to get their game going. And there's another team that came off the bye, lost 2. But they were so bad against the Giants that you expected at home a response of that nature.
Had to.
And the likes of Brayshaw, outstanding, Sarong, terrific. And in many ways, I think being at the game and calling this young man, and still not convinced about him long term, but gee, I was so happy for him to play the best game of footy he has. 32 disposals for Liam Henry.
Yeah, he was very good. Look, I played a bit of footy with him at Peel a couple of years back, and I really liked what I saw. Now, we're going to see some inconsistencies from him. Like, we've seen that already in his career, but I think his upside, right, in a game like that, has him in the team every week. Like, I think you've got to have a player that has upside like that, because these guys that aren't consistent, aren't Andrew Brayshaw, aren't Caleb Sarong. Not everyone is those players. I'm sorry. Players get dropped every week. You don't have guys that can perform every week. And I know it's frustrating as fans or as people watching on, but the upside of Liam Henry, the difference he makes to your side, his kicking ability when it's on, he's breaking the lines when it's on, all those things when they're on, they're better than anyone else in the team.
Yeah, he looks really good in space. And then, look, some clubs, some teams won't give him that space that he had on Saturday night, because, I mean, he was there and Mick Martin, there was a lot of space for both.
I'll tell you where he doesn't get space is in the waffle. So you may as well play him, and you're not going to find out unless you keep playing him. They keep dropping him. So just leave him in there.
Yeah,
he's a difference maker.
Yeah, and what he did on the weekend, having interviewed Brendan Cox, is that he noticed, Coxie, that Liam pushed back into defence to help out. That was, for him, quite significant.
Good.
But you're right, look, he doesn't have to do that every week, 32 touches. But if he can roll out, 20 plus, he does give you that point of difference and just that little silk. There's some turnovers he produced, which I think you said when he's on, he's really good. But
that's guys that take the risk. They turn the ball over.
Yeah, it's
right?
like having 1,000 shots from the 3-point range. If you're not shooting them, you're not scoring them.
Alex Pearce doesn't turn the ball over because he kicks it 15 metres sideways.
Yeah,
right. So he's not a turnover guy.
But he knows his limitations.
Yeah, correct. So when Liam Henry's taking a 50-metre bullet through the middle of the ground, he's going to turn it over, isn't he? But when it hits, it's a goal.
Yeah,
that's the risk you take. That's why I think guys like him have to be in the side. Alex Pearce, speaking of him, was challenged last week, and as was the rest of the back line. I think 21 marks inside 50 against GWS isn't good enough. That's not to AFL standard. Alex Pearce keeps Peter Wright goalless.
Yeah, I saw someone on social media potting him. I'm going, Alex Pearce, seriously, if that was his job to keep Peter Wright, well, as he did, with a donut next to his name, he won't be playing against the Bulldogs, mind you, Alex Pearce.
Yeah, what's happened?
Well, he was finished the game on the bench, ice on the sort of lower calf, Achilles, I'd say calf.
Didn't he speak afterwards and say that it wasn't an injury sub?
Well, he did. Yeah, they said it was tactical, which that might be the case. But anyway, I might be wrong. But I don't see too many players finish the game with ice on their leg and then play the next week. But I might be wrong.
Right. Okay. You're very often not. Jackson, 3 goals. He was very good.
Yeah, he spent most of his time forward, and that was interesting. And he went through a little phase where he was getting his hands on the footy, not taking the mark. But no, I think we're watching the evolution of a really good player, and the Dockers know what they're getting. It's just a question of how much time he stays forward. And with Darcy in the ruck, I think probably that's the better angle. But by all means, use him. I mean, Tracy played some time in the ruck as well. So
the entire game for mine is off the back of Sean Darcy being back in the side. I mean, it just shows how important he is. It means Jackson goes forward. It means they get midfield dominance. All these things that they've struggled with without him in the side. He's such an important player for them. And the talk about trading him, you may as well trade away your finals hopes for the next 5 years if you trade him.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly trade other players.
Jackson's not a number 1 ruckman.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
He doesn't need to be when he...
No, and so you trade away Darcy with just Jackson, and then you've got... No, it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if Darcy wants to go, then you have to obviously juggle the balls in the air. But no, I think you're right. There's still a chance for... Because Fremantle, let's be honest, they need to keep their list... broadening their list, because it's at the moment it's still not going to take them where they need to go. But Darcy, you're right. I think once he came back into the side, Draper missed Essendon. I was a shade disappointed with him because I thought they've had some really good footy this year, played some good footy. But again, they're coming off the bye and they get rolled.
Thank God the byes are done now. Matty Johnson played one of his better games, I thought, for the club as well. Good to see him playing well. West Coast, 4 100-point losses. Only 14 100-point losses of all time for West Coast. Is that right?
Only had 14 100-point losses.
Who? West Coast. So West Coast have had 14 100-point losses. That's quite a lot.
And so Collingwood's had 7 in their...
Collingwood has had 7 100-point losses in their... their last was in 2005. So anyway, that's how it goes. I'm sick of talking about West Coast. I've got every media organisation in the world screaming out for some opinions. Listen to the Shelter FootyCast. Will Schofield, Mark Reddings. Geelong defeat Melbourne by 15, Skater. This was a good one. Watched every minute of this. Thursday night footy down at the Cattery. It was tight. Scores level. Melbourne may even be in front at three-quarter time.
They were.
It was a bit of a finals-like game for mine. Both two sides going at it. But when it really came to it in that last quarter, Geelong lifted.
Absolutely. And they put a few goals on Melbourne in the blink of an eye, and the game was done and dusted. And Gary Rowan, we know what happened early in the game with him and Jeremy Cameron. He was the villain who turned into the hero, and he kicked, I think, 3 goals.
Yeah. It was an interesting one, wasn't it? The huge hit on Cameron, saw it when it happened. He'll miss next week as well with concussion protocol, but it was always going to be interesting to see how Gary Rowan responded. I think it's been pretty publicly followed that he can be in and out of games, both physically and mentally, and it was going to be one of those ones, would he just fade out? But it looked like he stepped up. Like, it's not something that you ever plan for, probably injuring your best player in a freak accident, but he probably felt some responsibility to cover those goals.
Yeah, of course, and he was visibly upset afterwards. I think one of his teammates,
Tom Stewart.
Tom Stewart went up and consoled him. What I liked about Geelong was, though, it was tailor-made for them in many ways. At the Cattery, it's a bit wet, and Melbourne they've beaten them 4 of the past 5 matches leading to that game. The interesting point I'd like to make is the Grundy-Gawn mix and how that's going. And Max, look, I'm not saying he's been poor, but just doesn't. I don't know if he's playing as well as what we know he can.
Well, he doesn't get the dominance in the ruck like we've known him to. And he also missed a chunk with injury there as well. So
with a knee, yeah.
I think you've got a little bit of space to come back from there. But Gawn's been a dominating ruckman. He's in the similar mould to Sean Darcy, wears his opponents down. And when you come in and out of the ruck like he has to with a Grundy, because Gawn Grundy isn't Darcy Jackson. It's a different combo. Like Darcy and Jackson are different players. Gawn and Grundy are pretty similar. And it was going to be a question coming into this year how they'd go. Look, I just think it's risky taking your best player, who's Max Gawn. Now, Oliver and Petrarca, of course, but most important player, if you take a Gawn from dominating games and hope for the best with Gawn Grundy, I thought it was always going to be risky. Now, is that why they're losing? Probably not. There's a lot more factors.
Well, they beat Collingwood with the start price. So,
correct.
So the good is very good, but by the same time, look, Petrarca, in Oliver's absence, still, I think,
outstanding.
Carried the load.
What did you think of the Tom Stewart pushing over Jack Viney incident?
Did he get a fine? Was it $1,500?
$1,500? I hope it wasn't 15,000.
1,500?
Yeah. Fair?
Well, isn't that what the AFL is trying to just keep everything?
It was a little bit of nothing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's minor. Well, the same. We'll get to the Mason Cox incident, but yeah, I think there's probably an argument that he gets a fine because of the current climate. That's about all that can be said. My concern for Melbourne, just briefly, is Ben Brown obviously hasn't been in favour for a while. They're not kicking a score. And I'm not saying you have to kick a score to win in September, but gee, you look at Port Adelaide and Collingwood and what they are able to produce generally. I've got concerns about their forward line again, Melbourne.
Yeah, I mean, Van Rooyen's a good player, but if you're coming up to match up against them and he's their best tall, you put your best defender on him. And I think as a young player, you're going to struggle against the best defenders in the comp. If you have a Ben Brown there and you get the second best defender, that's when he starts to really shine. So it'd be good to have someone to take the gloss off him, because I think he can be a really important, good player. I think that's what they'd be thinking at match committee. Can we get someone in to help support him? Brisbane defeats St Kilda by 28 away from the Gabba. Of course I didn't pick them. I mean, why would you? It's the first time they've won away from the Gabba in 10 years.
No, well, the Marvel Stadium record, pretty good, Scully, to be fair. The MCG is horrendous, but the Marvel Stadium, they play under the roof pretty well. And to be honest with you, St Kilda kicked the first goal, but Brisbane, I think, dominated the game. I don't think there's any questions here. And
this one was Spud's game. It was a pretty special start to the game.
Yeah, saw that, and Anita Frawley spoke on the big screen, and there was lots of goodwill about, obviously, the charity and the foundation that they've got set up for under Spud's name. But the on-field, I thought that the Lions, I saw Joey Danaher get hold of the footy early, and he looked on. Yeah, he looked on. I thought if he's on, then Brisbane, I think, are going to be okay tonight. So off the back of that,
Hipwood was sizzling as well. He kicked 4 goals. He was involved in an incident with Liam Stocker. I thought it was staging by Hipwood. Said it on Twitter when I saw it happen. I've seen it again. His head didn't hit the ground, so I hope he didn't get done. He didn't get reported to Liam Stocker. Seriously, you got to get that out of the game and out of Hipwood's game, especially.
But there is some simulation I've seen with players.
Yeah, don't like it at all.
Either their head's not hitting the deck, but they are sort of indicating that, and the umpires straight away, generally stopping play on that basis.
I don't like that at all. I'm pretty sure. Who was it? Who's St Kilda's big?
Rowan Marshall. Who are you talking about?
No, big key forward, Max King. He got reported on the spot for striking and he missed the bloke. Did you see that? He got reported on the spot for striking and he's absolutely missed him. There was a couple of stinkers there from the umpires. Hopefully neither of those players was reported or cited. I think we can move on. Scared of Brisbane with the best side. They win.
Did St Kilda still make the finals?
Yes.
They've got the Eagles this week. So
do they win that game?
Well, they've got... Yeah, so but they've certainly fallen away. And you know what? The funny thing is that going into that game, from memory, I read it out last year, they had used 28 players during the season. The reason that's extraordinary, I think, is because they had so many injuries at the start of the year, but they haven't used a big bulk of their list. So yeah, you would have thought St Kilda would have improved as their reinforcements came, but they've actually tailed off a bit. But maybe the list that Ross has isn't. Let's be honest, we don't think it's
it's not
elite.
It's not deep, but I feel like that's a Ross Lyon trait, is to have his guys, and he kind of backs them in.
And backs, yeah, possibly.
I feel like that was the case at Freo. Maybe not, but as players become more available, they get them back into the side. Collingwood defeat Adelaide by 2 points, the game of the round. The Magpies marched home. It was a bit of an up and down game, wasn't it? There was some leads eaten back by both sides. Collingwood jumped to a big lead. Adelaide
momentum
got them back.
Adelaide
and took
third
the lead.
Quarter. Yeah, 7 consecutive goals, I think it was. Yep. They led by 13 at three-quarter time. Didn't see much of this game because I was at the Waffle, but it was a match where it was beautifully set up at three-quarter time because we know what Collingwood can do.
Collingwood.
Even for Adelaide thinking, okay, remember they were beaten at the Adelaide Oval by Collingwood, similar circumstance.
Yeah.
They sort of
it's happened
led
twice this year.
And 13 points up. It's almost as if Craig McRae, they had such a bad third quarter, able to turn the switch on, and of course they get across the line. Not by much. Tex Walker gave them a shot late with a mark and then goal. He's had kicked 43 for the season, which puts him at the top of the Coleman medal.
Tex Walker was one of my toughest opponents through my career, so that doesn't surprise me. He's playing in a side that's playing really attacking, aggressive footy. Adelaide, I think that's probably why they're a good matchup for Collingwood. They're playing a similar... It's different. I think Collingwood actually play a more risky brand of footy than Adelaide. Adelaide, just from footy eye, look like they're playing aggressive and attacking, but they can go to a bit more of a defensive mode. Whereas Collingwood, it just feels like you have to be on them all the time because they're just going to keep coming. Whereas Adelaide, a little bit more in and out with their aggression and defence. But that's why he's going really well. He's playing in a good side. This Adelaide team's a good side. Do they make finals? Same question you'd have against St Kilda and Essendon at this stage.
I think they're playing better footy. Well, certainly at home, they're a very tough side to beat.
Yes.
I still like them ahead of St Kilda and line ball with Essendon. I'm going to give Essendon to chop out for what they produced on Saturday night. But yeah, the game had a bit of feeling in it. Mason Cox, your old sparring partner, gets involved in a bit of a hoo-ha.
People hate to play on Mason. He's just big and dopey, like most ruckmen.
He obviously chirps a bit.
Got the swagger, and so if you're a defender and he comes at you, you want to blue him. So that last quarter, that was a decent little scuffle, wasn't it? They got him to ground. He got ravaged, by the way. Mason, he got ravaged. He ended up with his shirt up. He had his head outside, out of his armhole.
Yeah.
But in the end, like, it probably works in Collingwood's favour that lose focus for what you're doing and focus the man. Keep going throughout that last quarter a bit and was a bit back and forward. So Keys got done for ripping his goggles off.
So the MRO. Well, if Murphy was done
Norton
for pulling down, was it Cadman's pants at that game at the MCG?
Someone ripped Norton's
headband off. So you'd expect there's a little monetary penalty.
Is that?
You don't.
Well, if you're going to be wearing these, I think Mason's is different. It's a medical reason he's wearing it. But if you're wearing a headband, I reckon that's fair game. Unless you're going to staple it to your head. If you're going to run around with a big headband,
what about your
it's not a
goggles?
tool of the trade. No, goggles. Like, I would say goggles are in the same realm as a mouth guard. You can't just rip someone's mouth guard out. It's a medical protection thing. But headbands and ponytails in, and maybe like the Ryan Crowley sweatbands, I reckon that's fair game.
Yeah, well,
isn't it?
Oh, not in 2023. I don't think you can do anything.
I was going to say, what can you do?
By the way, just to finish off our discussion with that, just to show you how well Collingwood goes, they've won 11 of their last 15 games when trialling at three-quarter time. The most recent example that didn't happen was against Melbourne, but they have been elite.
That's crazy. Yeah, absolutely crazy stat. Best side in the competition.
Well, I think Port Adelaide deserve to be.
To move.
Yeah, I think it's Port and Collingwood. And outside of that, Scully, in brief, there's a margin.
Yeah, Brisbane maybe, but you know what we feel about them away from the Gabba against good sides. And they're not going to play every game at the Gabba in finals. Melbourne, they failed against Geelong, but in Geelong you get the little brief there. Is Geelong kind of? I know that they're barely in the 8, but is Geelong moving? And then they got the bunch of the upcomers, the ones that have turned it around this year, in Adelaide, St Kilda, Essendon. None of them are challenging for the best player.
Two standout sides at the moment. That can change, but at the moment, Collingwood, Port comfortably.
Gold Coast defeat Hawks by 67 points, an absolute blockbuster on Sunday afternoon. Gold Coast. Look, they stay in the finals hunt, and you give them that. Hawks really poor. Probably one of their only poor games of the year. They've probably had one, maybe 2 or 3. They lost that first round by a lot. They maybe had another one in there. This was really poor by Hawthorn. 2 goalless quarters in amongst it by the Hawks. Ben King and Jack Lukosha starting to form a pretty decent forward line combination from what I saw. King kicking 2, Lukosha's 2 as well. They've really got some things to like, Gold Coast, but their consistency is something I don't like because we haven't seen this all year.
No. Well, maybe again, like a couple of the other clubs, that match against Carlton at the MCG, we give them a leave pass given they were coming off a couple of games in Darwin, but they had 31 scoring shots to 9. And bear in mind that Hawthorn kicked the first 2 goals yesterday. After the back of that, they kicked 3.
Wow.
So those numbers are damning. Sam Mitchell said they were in a pretty good space even during the second quarter. Look, the margin wasn't big at all. It was 10 points at half time. The longer the game went, the class of the Suns came to the fore. And look, I know he's going to be missing 3 weeks, and he wouldn't have prevented them losing the game. But James Sicily, his absence obviously would have been felt. But this is a side Hawthorn. We talk about rebuilding, and you look at North Melbourne, West Coast to some degree of what you're expecting from a side with the young players. And I think this is the prototype. This is stereotypical of what you would see from a team developing. You see some great performances like they did against the Saints, and then some performance like this away from home sometimes you go, and against Port Adelaide they got towelled up early, where you go, wow, that's...
You're going to cop it.
Yep.
Now, we've missed Thirsty Camel Clangers of the Week this week, Skeeter. Look, I don't know.
Where do you go with the G? SCG.
You've got to give it to... where do I start with it? I'm trying to think something a bit quirky. I'm just going to give it to the West Coast Eagles
as a team.
As a football club. Thirsty Camel Clanger of the Week, 171-point loss, the biggest Is it the biggest losing margin by the football club? No. Yeah, it might have been. It was certainly Sydney's biggest ever score in their history. Don't run out of your favourites. Grab your shelters at Thirsty Camel. And that's pretty much where I'll leave it.
You're going to leave it. That's where
you got something better.
No, I think it's so bad. It's just looking us in the eyeballs.
What did you froth, Skeeter? What was your favourite part of the weekend? Froth Town. What we frothed on this weekend? August 18 and 19, Claremont Showgrounds. What did you froth? It could be on or off the field, Skeeter. Did you win any bets?
I had a decent time on the punt, so that's nice. I just ticking along nicely.
That's good.
I'm going to give a Froth Town moment to a bloke that doesn't play AFL, but he has played one AFL game.
Right. Hamish Brayshaw.
No. Played his 250th game yesterday. His name's Aaron Black.
Oh, wow.
And credit to him, a very rare sort of milestone. They got rolled West Perth, but I'll give my Froth Town moment to seeing Blackie play his 250. He even had T-shirts with his face and name emblazoned on it. So he gets my Froth Town moment outside of the AFL. I mean,
I'll give my Froth Town moment. What we frothed on this weekend, I like the fact that Gary Rowan rebounded after knocking his best player out, absolutely smacked him, came back, kicked 3 goals, and I'll tie into that Tom Stewart grabbing him around and taking him off and saying, mate, it's all right. Clearly knew his teammate leadership. In fact, as I'm speaking, I'm swapping my Froth Town moment to Tom Stewart for showing some real leadership at the Geelong Cats. And he wins the game by knowing his teammates.
No, and I love the fact you're able to just think on the run and just ad-libbing your way through Froth Town and our clangers of the week.
Thank you very much, Skeeto. Will Schofield, Mark Redding, Shuttle FootyCast. It was the biggest losing margin in West Coast history. That's what I was searching
204 points. They've never conceded 200 before. Okay. I don't believe it.
Congratulations. Thirsty Camel Clanger. Jerry writes in, Skeeter, lads, can I get your thoughts on the Eagles' game plan?
I just spent 40 minutes.
I know Simo was wanting to find a new identity, but surely hard contested football and defence needs to be priority number one for the time being. Has he got the game plan completely wrong? I can speak about it if you want.
Yeah, well, you have to because...
look, I think at stages you've seen the shifting game plan, and it was kick mark footy, and it was slower ball movement, it was possess the ball, kick long to post, which is down the line basically, and dominate through that way. It is now... At least they've tried to.
With Jaden Hunt being one of those players to try and give that run.
So it's now run, break the lines, try and move it quickly from the back line, take some more risks, contest the ball, get numbers around the footy and win it. So when none of that happens, that's when the questions get asked. It's like, well, okay, here's the game plan. They're not doing it. Why? That's what I've walked away with the biggest question with what I saw on the weekend is the why. And then how do you fix it? But the why is the first, and I don't really know. I don't really have an answer because it's too broad for mine. I don't know what you think. But.
Well, okay, let me ask this in brief. Is it game plan that's... We know the game plan's horribly missed, or are you more concerned about what the players are putting out there in terms of toil?
Yeah, well, it comes off the back of development and getting better in the player realm is what I'm more concerned about. So I think I lean more on that than game plan because, again, through my career... Yes, there was patches of game plan, of patches of things that we did from a tactical point of view, but the majority of my career comes, successful sides are built on really basic stuff that everyone does, and the better teams do them well. Contested footy.
Yep.
The little moments, of course, that's where you get your 5%, 1% better, but you still just need to do the basics of footy correctly, and that's not West Coast aren't doing that. So that's for me, that's a development point of view. And that's on the coaches as well. But it's the setup, it's the injuries, it's the waffle, it's everything, developing players. That's my biggest risk. Anyway, hi gents, love the podcast. Enjoy listening to the insights and banter after insights. This is a bit of a longer one, so we'll streamline it a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about throwing magnets around the board for West Coast and playing guys in different positions. What do you think of them playing guys in the positions that made their name in before being recruited, i.e. put Greg Clark and Connor West on ball, even though both of them are injured, in the guts or at the stoppages? It feels that for too long West Coast have been trying to shoehorn talent into positions they aren't suited or capable of. I'll just answer that right now. They're too injured to do that, and they've been playing players out of position. I do like Luke Shuey as a backman. I do like Elliot Yeo as a backman, but they can't win the ball inside.
So no point having your best mids who are also could be decent. And also,
They started Jack Petrocelli in the back line on the weekend.
That's true. Here's another example. Tom Barras started forward against Essendon, I think it was.
They kicked the first 3 goals.
They kicked the first 3 goals, Essendon, so therefore Simo had no choice but to put him back. So, it's difficult to see. And look, I take the point about Clark and West. My question with Clark and West is being inside mids at AFL level, are they good enough to be players that you would trust over a long period of time?
I think this part of the email is what we need to speak about. West Coast Waffle, who in the last 5 to 8 years has emerged from their development program into the one. Seems like so many talented juniors make it onto the list only to go backwards when delisted. And then delisted. Ainsworth, Brander, Watson, Brayshaw, etc. Shout out Hamish Brayshaw. They can't seem to develop talent or use or misuse it, particularly when they're established senior players. So...
well, development's the question, and
would a suburban club alignment help them understand junior development methods and pathways? It would also give them a player development structure to bolster balance the Waffle side.
Yeah, the alignment question it still hangs in the air, and we're not no closer to it. The one that's in the background, and we probably have time at a different shelter FootyCast to discuss it, is the AFL reserves competition. Now we know that lots of clubs on the East Coast are involved in the pseudo VFL. How far away is that? Will that benefit the Eagles if they can be part of that? That's again different to they still got to produce and develop players, but whether being part of the AFL reserves comp can give the Eagles a different change of angles, I'm not sure. Right
now, it's a watch this space thing for the West Coast Eagles. I'll be very surprised if we don't see a change in the next 10 days. And I know that Paul Fitzpatrick's come out and said that. You got faith in Simo. I think there'll be...
administrative?
Something will happen. It could be administrative, coaching, playing... I just would not be surprised. And this is based on no knowledge, I promise.
No, I agree with you.
I think there'll be either a retirement, a sacking, quitting, a change.
No, you know what?
I would say in the next 10 days.
I wish I could challenge you, but it almost feels like it's imminent. And when I was doing the waffle yesterday, we heard there was a statement coming from Paul Fitzpatrick. Wasn't sure whether it's going to be
ugly.
Exactly. But you just feel that's almost going to be the domino that starts this chain of events. And as you say, I wish I could argue with you, but I think you're going to be on the money somewhere.
Shelter XBA X Factor could even be the BackChat Ale X Factor, to be honest, given the release of the BackChat Ale Thursday, 6:30 p.m. at the Gate Bar and Bistro.
I'll be at the Dog and Hound in London just getting on the gas.
We'll have to take a couple of BackChat Ales over with you. Liam Henry, we're giving it to
us. Yes, I was going to say, I thought I was going to get an input into this, but I didn't. But I was going to go Liam Henry anyway.
Tell you what, that's it. We'll get those BackChat Ales over to you, Liam Henry, and we'll see you at the Gate Thursday. Skeeter, good luck taking your pre-packed meal. She done your lunch on the way there?
No, she hasn't. I'm flying Emirates tonight, so just dropping into Dubai and then just flying from there. But
I want some updates, please.
I'll have some Pims, some pints, I'll have a punt, and hopefully some pommy poles, which are wickets, by the way, in England. And it's cloudy on Wednesday, but not raining. Thank Christ for that. Otherwise, I'll have paid a lot of money to go and sit and get drunk in a pub at Lord's. But looking forward. It should be big. A bit like you going across to watch the F1. It's a little sporting bucket list.
Thank you very much, Skater. Have fun. Shelter FootyCast. Follow us on Instagram. Listen to us a podcast. Enjoy it.